Hey folks, this is Chuck Suter of ConstitutionalWar.org, and I'm here with none other than John Rhodes, the former representative of the 99th at the time, but 98th, what's currently the 98th District. And it's been about 7 years, you told me, since you've done an interview. And first off, I'd just like to ask you how's your life been, and we'll get into the details after that.
Very good. Well, it's been good. It's been a long time since I've actually spoken in front of any groups or anything such as that. I'm a real estate broker in the town of Cornelius, and business, as we all know, the economy has been healing itself hopefully over the years, but it's been a bit of a struggle, but we're doing okay.
Very good. Well, you say it's been a while since you've been in front of the camera. You did kind of make your way to a press conference not long ago where you brought forth some ethics charges on Speaker Tom Tillis, who's now the GOP nominee for U.S. Senate. And you brought forth some information you felt necessary to bring forward. I was very supportive, and I think others were as well. Can you talk a little bit about those ethics charges and where they stand and what those were about?
Well, it's been a concern anytime we see elected officials and whatnot bullying members of the public, bullying fellow colleagues and whatnot, and trying to more or less push their political weight around for whatever purposes. And so as a former elected official, I felt that it was important to bring some of these issues to light that had been publicized in the newspaper and some of the other media outlets, so that the public could actually take a look behind the curtain and see what was going on in the North Carolina legislature as well.
And you have definitely had experience in the past. Jim Black and Richard Morgan, there were times that you would want to speak and Mr. Black would not allow you to speak. Do you feel vindicated that the course of events took to your favor? Do you feel like you were vindicated in your battle to expose that corruption when you were in office?
Well, I think an important thing to note there, Chuck, is that that issues that were of concern to many citizens and a couple of elected officials at the time, were brought to light and they were dealt with and whatnot, and some people went to prison as a result of the corruption in public office. But vindicated to some degree. But unfortunately it seems like some of the offenses are still occurring up in Raleigh and whatnot. And it's just very concerning to me as a citizen who has been up in that environment and served in that environment to see the legislative process more or less be prostituted from time to time. And it's just very concerning to see elected officials acting as they do.
And what were some of when you were trying to bring forward these issues, I know you had told Jim Black that at one point when he wouldn't let you talk, what did you say? Can you repeat that?
Right. One time during House floor debate, it's important that elected officials are able to speak, both from their heart and their head, because they are entrusted with the public's trust. It's important that those elected representatives, regardless of who the power brokers are or the elected leaders are in the bodies, the House and the Senate, it's important that those elected officials are able to speak without fear of reprisal or punishment or anything such as that, or political retribution. But during House floor debate, we told the Speaker, when we knew that some of the issues were going on, during a particular debate, Mr. Speaker, the people of North Carolina are going to take you by the nape of your neck and the belt line of your trousers, and they're going to toss you out of this building over the state seal. Now, a lot of people thought that was disrespectful. I think it's more disrespectful to be disrespecting the people's house and the institution of the House of Representatives and the state Senate, perhaps. But years later, the people did that through their Department of Justice. They did send him flying across the state seal, and he didn't land until he landed in a federal prison cell.
Yes, and I would like to say that that had fixed all of the problems here in North Carolina, but I think one of the reasons that you've decided to speak up again, I would make the guess, is because all these problems have not been fixed. What are some of the similarities that you would see that have continued to this day?
Well, you see people in leadership positions using those positions to further perhaps legislation. You see situations where people are using retribution against fellow elected officials who would speak out against offenses going on in the House of Representatives.
No, we have, Robert Raleigh had faced a primary. I think maybe that would be considered an example of that.
Right, right. You had the Larry Pittman incident that was primaried. You had the Robert Brawley situation where they were, and what were these men's offenses? They went to Raleigh and they served with honor and dignity, and they spoke out against, in this case, Representative Tillis's opinion, and didn't quite mirror his opinion. So they were evidently targeted for being kicked out of office, and that's unfortunate.
And, you know, I don't know, when you went to Raleigh, was this your intention to be this great fighting crusader? What was your opinion of the Republicans versus Democrats at the time? I know you've mentioned that you're now currently an independent, correct?
That's correct.
And what was it that motivated you to say, you know what, it's time for me to speak up and even speak against your own party?
Well, when I got to Raleigh as a freshman, and kind of took a landscape, a survey of the landscape and whatnot, and kind of peeled back the curtain, I saw some really bad things that were going on, very concerning, from both Republicans and Democrats. And I decided right then that I was going to set the course that I was not going to participate. And my goodness, we certainly had the offers. The offers were certainly extended to us by the Republicans and not much the Democrats, because at the time I was a very fierce partisan. I was a member of the Republican Party and very fierce partisan, dealing with conservative issues and whatnot.
You had a lot of faith in the Republican Party.
I did, and as I served more and more, I saw the offenses equally from both sides, from behind the curtain, and saw the offenses from the corruption from the Democrats who were in power at that time. And I saw also the offenses equally from the Republicans that wanted to try to, I guess, coalesce with the Democrats. And I asked myself, you know, why would they do this when they're telling the public that this is what we stand for? But yet, when they get up there behind the curtain in the legislature, they're actually advocating for something that is totally different than what the people sent them from a particular party, the Republican Party and the Conservatives sent them to Raleigh to do. And I came to the conclusion that it was about two things, money and power. And many will say, well, if you don't have the money and you don't have the power, then you can't, you know, you can't govern from that perspective. But I would have to argue that, you know, there's not a whole lot of difference in the outcome when you have that type of mindset. A Republican, based on my personal experiences, and I can speak with some authority because I've been in the legislative body, a Republican majority is not going to be enough to fix the ills of our country or our state or our governing bodies. More or less, you see the Republicans and the Democrats out there fighting against each other, but behind closed doors you see them coming together and cutting deals and whatnot, and that's very concerning because the poor public back home, they don't know any better, but they're being misled in a very, very egregious manner, and that's very concerning to me, was concerning to me at the time.
Yeah, absolutely. It doesn't seem like it ever ends. Where there is a position to be taken to have influence over large numbers of people. People have been buying these seats since the Carnegies and the Rockefellers and the Vanderbilts of days of old. And you talk about these parties. Can you give us an example of some of the stuff that you've seen in Raleigh where you told me one story about sitting on a street corner eating your hot dog or something along those lines. Do you mind repeating that?
Sure. Very pointed episode of what it's like to serve in Raleigh, trying to fight for what we believe, what I believe is the right things, and trying to clean up state government. And that is, if you play the game, you eat a big dinner and a big lobster dinner at Sullivan's. If you don't play the game, you are up the street at a place called Snoopy's Hot Dog Stand having a 2 for $3 hot dog, sitting on a railroad tie, watching your colleagues who, aided and abetted that day's legislation, having their cars valet parked. So those are the two different things. And you really, as an elected official, when you go in, you have to determine, am I going to stay true to my oath of office, what I raised my hand and swore an oath to do, to protect and to defend the Constitution and follow the laws, or am I going to play the game, which is very contradictory to following the Constitution and sometimes following the laws of the state. You have to set in your heart and in your mind, what is your attitude going to be in elected office? Are you going to play the game, or are you going to be true to your oath of office and keep your promises to the people that you were elected to serve?
Yeah, we obviously, there's one of the issues, I believe you brought it up, is in your ethics charges against Mr. Tillis that appear to have been squashed by the officials up in Raleigh, was the Board of Governors decision where Tillis had said, I believe he said something along the lines of, I had to appoint this person to this position because they made a large campaign donation. Is that, do you see it, have you seen a lot of that? Is there a lot of, okay, you get to be here because you've donated X amount of dollars? Is it like a shakedown? I mean, how does that work?
Well, we, the people, the public, really can only determine what's going on behind that shroud, that curtain that is the state legislature, based on what the media reports report out. Not everyone has the time to be going to the state legislature and investigating what may have occurred in the state legislature. So we have to count on the media. Sometimes they get it right, and sometimes they miss it, and sometimes they cover for some of the wrongdoing that is going on.
I think that's a big thing, is that a lot of times it seems like not just that the media doesn't understand the issue or they get it wrong. It almost seems like they're intentionally not wanting to say some of these things. I mean, you experienced some of that yourself, did you not?
I did. I can remember a particular time where I'd asked the speaker at the time when I was serving in the House. I asked him about a particular piece of legislation that was we were trying to get out of a committee and put before the House. And well, I'll tell you what, he really laid into me really a verbal assault with a lot of profanity laced. There was a Charlotte Observer reporter standing right beside us, and I looked at the reporter and I said, you're not writing any of this down. And the speaker looked at him, point blank, and he said, he didn't hear a thing that I said. And I looked at the reporter and I said, certainly you're hearing what this man is saying. He's standing 2 feet from you. And the reporter, as if to say, I'm not really allowed to report on what's going on up here other than what they tell me that I can report on. I spoke to the reporter. Some hours later, he had contacted me about another particular issue, and I said, you're not going to cover that report of what happened today on the House floor with the verbal assault from the speaker and whatnot, and all the profanity-laced rant that he went on. He said, I'm very busy, John, but I'm working on another story concerning you right now. So a couple of days later, we see the report of the headlines were Rhodes too ready to rumble. And what it was characterizing my efforts in the House to root out the corruption and smoke out the corruption from the legislative leaders, both Republican and Democrat, to try to make this representative who's trying to smoke out the corruption look as if he's up there causing trouble. So
or just a conspiracy theorist that is, thinks that there's a bad guy around every corner. Jim Black and Richard Morgan, they can't be bad people. I mean, Richard Morgan is thrown out of the Republican Party. Black ends up in prison. Somebody is recruited to primary you by the name of Tom Tillis. How did that, when was the first time you learned about Tom, and what was that experience like in that primary?
Well, he had served on the town board of the town of Cornelius, and I served on that board as well. I served half a term before some people thought that I'd do an okay job up in Raleigh. These were folks that said, you're a good Republican, you toe the line so far, you fight against tax increases and whatnot, so we'll send you up there. But I don't think that they really realized that when I saw the offenses from both the Republicans and Democrats going on in the legislature and the corruption,
they had no idea what they were getting into.
That I would be fighting so vehemently against these offenses against the People's House and against the institution of government, and that wasn't received very well. Incidentally enough, too, these elected officials that go to Raleigh, they're expected to raise money. It's almost kind of like paying your club dues.
Really?
That you would, I can remember very well a party official coming to me and saying, I need you to raise $5,000. And I said, well, I'm busy taking care of my real estate business back home, and I'm serving 72,000 constituents, and I'm fighting against these Republicans and Democrats who would just as soon take me out behind the building and give me a what for and maybe never see me again. And you want me to go and raise $5,000 when I'm trying to pay my mortgage and trying to take care of my family while I'm away in Raleigh for 4 days out of the week.
And this is just standard practice.
And I said, I almost kind of get the feel that if I don't raise this $5,000 that I won't be like really well received within the party. And there was a long pause and a long silence, and pretty much that was the case. If you don't raise the money, then we really don't see you as a very helpful person. And so then that was a real eye-opener for me to say, well, if I thought that we came up here to fight for our constituents,
yeah,
and to serve our constituents, and try to break up the business as usual that has gone on for years in the state government. It's very interesting too, as an outsider looking in, just based on my own personal experiences. They tout all the Democrats have been in charge for over 100 years, and boy, they've really corrupted the place. Well, goodness gracious, from through the lenses that I see, it's been very interesting that what took the Democrats over 100 years to corrupt has only taken the leaders that are in charge now less than 6 years to surpass some of the issues of corruption and whatnot.
Yeah, exactly. Getting rid of the pay-to-play, looking at I can't remember what the slogan is off the top of my head, the Carolina comeback. But the Carolina comeback has seemed to involve toll roads, shutting down fisheries, and a lot of folks will point the finger at the guy who primaried you. Do you feel that Tom Tillis, doing a lot of these, going after the fishermen, a lot of these things, what was that campaign like with Mr. Tillis?
Well, the thing that I thought was so odd was the things that we were fighting for in Raleigh, that so many Republican elected officials here locally would not endorse the efforts of what we were working for to try to clean up state government. Again, another light bulb comes on if the Republicans are so wanting to clean up state government and make it a less corrupt environment and kill the pay-to-play type of shenanigans that are going on in the state government. Why would they so vehemently oppose someone who's up there trying to expose it and fight against it? And it was a real moment that the light bulb went on. They're not necessarily about that, John. The Republican electeds, not Republican citizens, because remember, they only know what are being taught to them by the party leaders.
Yes.
And by their elected officials, who will, behind the curtain in Raleigh, do one thing contradictive to what perhaps they're telling the people back home. One of my former colleagues gives the example of, it's like Carolina going to play at Duke. And the Carolina players, while they're away at Duke, out of Chapel Hill, they're scoring points for Duke. And it's not a televised game, so nobody really knows what went on over there at the stadium or but when they come back, they say, oh, we fought hard, we lost the game, but we fought so hard and valiantly against the opposition. When everyone knows that was there present, the Carolina players were scoring points for the opposing team. And that's what was going on. That's what
So one party will take the blame for something that both parties truly want. Kind of like if you look at the issue of amnesty or something along those lines, or the issue that is really big right now here in North Carolina, and something that Mr. Tillis used against you in that primary. He was talking about you are a Rhodes block. You're a John Rhodes roadblock to getting new roads and making it a better living here in the Lake Norman area. And we're sitting about a 5-minute walk from I-77, and now we will actually have a toll road, a public-private partnership. A lot of the folks in this area are very upset about that. It seems as though he and others in the Republican supermajorities that we have want to put all of the blame on the Democrats for spending the gas tax money. Is that really a fair assessment? And why aren't Democrats speaking out against it when it would be a very unpopular thing? It does seem like the Democrats are just as happy about the toll roads, but Republicans are going to be the ones to take the blame.
Well, if you can imagine a visual, and you're in a football stadium and you look at a field, and there's the 50-yard line, and let's say that's total neutrality. You've got the Democrat electeds and the Republican electeds, those that are in the club, playing on the Democrats' field, and really never wanting to really take the ball and cross over that 50-yard line towards the Republicans' goal. All the issues, they kind of hang out here and they move the ball maybe 2 or 3 yards towards the 50-yard line, and maybe they get something, maybe they get the ball moved that far, and they claim victory. Oh, we put a value on. Well, goodness gracious, there's a supermajority now in Raleigh. They can do anything they want. They can do anything they want. They could take the ball, pretty much strip it from the other team as much as they want. They could literally walk the ball into their own, into the opposing team's goal and score. But yet they still want to continue to play over here on the left with issues that you brought up, toll roads, increased government spending, these types of things. Again, the objective should not be whether or not a Republican majority is. We have to get past this mindset of Republican versus Republican versus Democrat. For years, these are two opposing teams. From the elected perspective, they're not really two opposing teams. They're behind the curtain. They're playing together for some of the same common goals. But we don't have a dividing vertical line anymore. We have a dividing horizontal line. And on top, we have the political ruling class and the elite. And down below, we have we the people. And any time that one of we the people tries to crawl up onto that, up and hang out with the ruling class.
Representation, public representation.
They give them a toss back down amongst the plebes and whatnot.
Well, maybe they don't have $5,000.
Perhaps.
and
maybe they're not independently wealthy, that they can't fund a campaign.
Well, and that's one of the things that seems terribly odd, is that folks that have so much money already would get involved in politics at all. Now, maybe it's because they are trying to protect some of their land, maybe it's something along those lines, But none of them are getting involved in government because they truly love the Constitution. They're not talking about more freedoms, they're not talking about more liberties or protecting any of the things our founding fathers fought and died for. What is your opinion? Do you see going to the independent issue that you're talking about, or getting away from the parties? Do you see people starting to finally wake up and realize that a lot of these electeds don't, even if you're a Republican or a Democrat, each of the parties are not really representing the people? And how would you see a more citizen-based legislative platform and agenda be achieved?
Well, I believe that we need to get away from the whole party thing, and that means any party type of structure, whatever label you want to put on it. And actually, these elected should be about serving the public. Mm-hmm. If we've come to the conclusion that there's really no difference between the two parties, that both are just like two companies fighting for market share, the Democrat Inc. and the Republican Inc., and they're trying to sell their trinkets to the public and get more buyers in the door by what they say and they supposedly do or don't do. If there's no really distinction about what the outcome of that is, we really need to get away from these party labels and really look at these elected officials or elected officials who want to serve the public and say, where's your heart? Do you want to go into elected office with an attitude of servant leadership? Or do you want to go up to Raleigh or Washington to get some good stuff for yourself? Some good stuff and kind of feather your nest for the rest of your life. And if the answer is B, as the former speaker, the people need to, before they even get anywhere close to a legislative body, take them by the nape of their neck and the belt line of their trousers and toss them out of the way and not allow them to advance and serve, because that is not doing the public good. One thing, too, that they talk about wanting to get things done. Mm-hmm. Getting things done, what is the definition of that? Well, if the legislature did not pass another bill for 5 or 6 months or even 5 years, yeah, you know what? The sun is still going to rise in the east, and it's still going to set in the west. And I'm still going to get up and I'm going to go to work as a citizen and as an American, and I'm going to try to do my best to produce and provide for my family, regardless of what the electeds are doing in Raleigh or Washington. So if the bill that everybody's behind doesn't pass today, is it really going to change anything? Not necessarily. We put so much emphasis on, oh, they got to get something done. Yeah. You know what? I hope that they don't get anything done. I hope that they just kind of stalemate and whatnot, because there's a school of thought that the citizens are more in danger when the legislature is in session.
Absolutely.
Because when they're in session, then they can pass laws that actually hurt us. And these laws that they're passing aren't always necessarily with the citizens' best interest at heart. They are with the elected officials' best interest at heart. How can I manipulate the legislative system to perhaps create a greater sense of wealth or entitlement for myself as an elected official or in my leadership role? How will this affect being able to scrape up more money for my party or for my political future? And that's the wrong attitude.
It's been a while since you've done an interview. Like we said, I believe 7 years. Are you, it seems maybe this race and the way you see a Republican supermajority, you kind of stepped back and you almost, I wouldn't say you disappeared, but you didn't interfere with anything going on. Obviously now, it seems that you are willing to speak somewhat to some of these issues for maybe a fear of what is what's going on with the Republican supermajority, not truly pushing the ideas and weeding out the corruption that we needed. Are you going to consider maybe talking more, maybe speaking, sharing your thoughts, your experiences with some of the local conservative groups and tea parties, etc.?
I could. Let me just make it clear, though, very, very clear. I am not running for any political office. I have no desire whatsoever to run for political office. That time has come and gone. But I do have a passion for wanting to try to speak truth and to let the people know what is going on in their legislative bodies as someone with some credibility that has been there and actually seen and not been afraid to speak out with what has happened.
Well, and let me bring that up because there is a campaign out there. Folks want to have a choice in this election and to actually write you in as a protest, as a education tool, whatever it may be. What are your thoughts about that? You're aware of that, correct?
Well, I guess there are about 8.5 million North Carolinians. For you to even be mentioning my name in regards to that, that's quite a heavy burden. But that's an honorable thing. But I got to make it very clear: I'm not running for any elected office, and don't have any desire whatsoever to run for any office whatsoever. However, I wouldn't vote for either of the choices in that Senate race, myself personally. If I went to go vote today, I would leave that choice blank because there just is no choice on that ballot that I could, as a conservative, independent, that I could, in good conscience, put my vote behind.
And as far as the write-in campaign, what are your thoughts on that? I mean, I know you're not running for office, but say some miracle would happen and you would be written in to be the next senator from North Carolina. Would you go to D.C.?
Oh, I couldn't help but not go to serve the state and the people. You know, I got my start in public service as a medic and a fireman. So I never really bought into that whole what's in it for me attitude.
Exactly.
It's been more about, you know, well, you put it out there on the line for the people that you're sworn to protect and serve. When I was in the fire service and in EMS, I had the duty to act and protect life and property. And when I raised my hand up in Raleigh as an elected official, I took that oath seriously, and I had the duty to act there too, and to try to protect the public as much as I could from some of the bad, raunchy stuff that was going on up there from both Republicans and Democrats. And I took that very seriously. So, you know, I love North Carolina. I love the state. I hate to see the direction that it's going in. You had mentioned toll roads. That's a foreign concept in North Carolina.
Absolutely. Since the creation of the automobile, Democrats had held control and there were no toll roads. And now what do we see with Republican control? Unfortunately, not toll roads that are just private run, which would be a great thing. You know, it'd be nice if they'd build one real quick as you know, I'm getting ready to head to the GOP convention actually, I believe tomorrow. If they could build one from right here in Charlotte directly to Cherokee out there, I probably wouldn't mind paying for that. But as you talk about with toll roads, with the other forms of corruption that you see, what is the biggest concern that you would find in people being able to break away from that two-party system, and the biggest concern, the biggest obstacle to achieving that?
I think the public needs to have more information as to what's going on and not just hear what's being trumpeted by the two parties. The objective should not be whether or not we have a Republican or Democrat control the House or the Senate in Raleigh or D.C. It should be about changing the mindset and the way business is conducted in these legislative bodies. And you will not do that, you will not accomplish that by towing one party line or the other. Because remember, if we come full circle, when I was in Raleigh and serving in elected office, we saw just as much corruption on the Republican side at that time when I was there as we did on the Democrat side. That will be very difficult for some to believe because they've heard, oh, the Republicans are the good guys, they wear the white hat, they're the great helpers that are going to come in and ride in on the horse and save the day. Well, that's not.
But then when someone like yourself takes down a corrupt Democrat speaker, they primary you and throw you out of office. That's the Republican Party here in North Carolina. And as I do mention the convention, you know, they're stripping the platform of anti-amnesty, anti-Obamacare, anti-toll road. All of this stuff is being removed from the platform when it's being, and the convention is being held at a casino, and in that very platform it says we do not support casinos as the part of the Republican Party. So you're not running. There is a write-in campaign. Are you opposed to that write-in campaign? Are you, or what advice would you give for people if you are opposed to the write-in campaign?
Well, I cannot support what another individual will do. If they're grassroots across the state, I cannot control what they do, what they say, whatsoever. The people of the state have very big concerns, I believe. Mm-hmm. And I think that for myself personally, I cannot put a check mark next to either of the two candidates that would be in that race. You mentioned the gambling. Mm-hmm. And I believe that you said that there's something opposed to in the GOP's platform, NCGOP's platform, concerning gambling. But they are having the GOP convention at the far western end of the state at a gambling casino in Cherokee. That brings up an interesting story. When I served in the House, another one of those light bulb moments that came on. We were in caucus one day, and my caucus leader had said that they were debating the lottery at the time. Oh, okay, the education lottery. The education lottery, and
all the money from that goes to the education too.
Right. So the education lottery, and many of the Republicans and conservatives were very opposed to that out of a vote of conscience at the time. And it's a very interesting moment. That caucus leader said in our closed door session, he said, you don't want to have this lottery passed when the Democrats are in control. We want to pass it when we get in control. And I thought as a freshman sitting there, but wait, you know, we're hearing from the public that we don't want this state-sponsored gambling, really. You know, Republicans perhaps opposed to that. Mm-hmm. But what it did teach me at that point was, this isn't about principle. This isn't about pushing legislation that's going to be principled or whatnot. This is all about money and power. How can we manipulate that legislative process to be able to scrape more money into our corner so that we can get more power? And then I had to, you know, think about it really hard in my office late at night. I'd stay at the place till about 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, and then come back at about 6 and whatnot. And I kept scratching my head and saying, well, why would they want to do that? And you can always find the skunk when you follow the money trail in politics. If you get confused about why is this elected official doing this or that, you always follow the money. But it was a real moment that I determined that this isn't about principle, this is about power and money, and that's about it. Yeah. Same thing as the opposing party. You know, if we're opposed, or they're opposed, the Republicans are opposed to gambling, why have a GOP convention at a gambling casino? It doesn't seem to be very congruent with their party principles as written in the platform.
Well, absolutely, and you were mentioning the supermajorities, and I mean, there's so much they could do. They don't really stand up for life when we could have be pushing all kinds of legislation with this supermajority. I think that there are some good folks in the Republican Party, and I myself pull that lever quite often. I do think that this might be the last GOP convention I go to, and I might be changing my registration to from Republican and joining you at the independent registration. No party or anything like that. In closing, what would you suggest people do? Should they stay in the party? Should they become independents? How could they have an effect when a lot of people feel if they leave the Republican Party, then they're just completely hopeless? I mean, as an independent, you're still able to vote for Republicans if you choose to, correct? So
correct. Yeah, you can vote in a Republican primary if you'd like. One of the traps that many elected officials fall into is they feel like they have to compromise while they're in office, because they get this sense of, well, if I'm not here next time, then these great ideals won't be passed. Well, let me just share with you, Chuck, there was only one man that was that great.
yes.
There's nobody that great that if you're not there is going to make a big enough difference to make any difference. These elected officials need to serve for the time that they're in there, and they need to serve with all their heart and all their mind, and to work for the time that they'll be in there, whether it's 2 years or 4 years. But serve for the moment, not serve with, well, if I play my cards right the first 2 years, then maybe I can position myself to do something else and get reelected for year 4 and 2 and 3 and 4, and then perhaps if I play the cards this way, then I can get elected again.
Yeah.
Don't compromise. Serve for the moment. Know that the clock is always ticking. The public can fire you at every election, but serve with all your heart and serve with all the integrity that you can muster, regardless of when the next election schedule is. And serve the public. Have a servant attitude of really loving the public, serving the public, and working for them as opposed to working for self and trying to get a lot of good stuff for yourself.
Very good. And finally, I would ask, what are some things that you would, closing statements? It's been 7 years. Something that you would like to allow people to know about you, your thoughts, or any advice that you would like to leave us with?
Well, you asked the question, what can people do? A lot of people feel hopeless that the Republicans and the Democrats are not really for them anymore. There's a saying, and I can't quote who said it, but it said, one voice who speaks out is louder than 10,000 who remain silent.
Yes, very true.
That's pretty poignant in the fact that all you got to do to begin with is show up. And you got to speak from what comes in here, connect it with what's in here, and let it be trumpeted out here. And have hope that things will get better, regardless of whether the Republicans or Democrats are trying to blockade a better and less corrupt, elected body. But just know that there are people out there that are good people that serve an elected office. They're not all corrupt. Some of them have, a good, true servant leadership attitude. So have hope in that. But we've really got to get away from this whole, the Republicans are going to save us, the Democrats are going to just really kill us. I characterize it like this: the Democrats are a quick kill to our constitutional republic. The Republicans, the way that they have governed, are as a slow, painful death roll of our constitutional republic over time. It's kind of like the Band-Aid. Do you want it pulled off real quick, or do you want it just slowly peel off? What's more painful? So we've got to look at other alternatives to what's out there, and that's very difficult. The media, they're teaching the public what they should believe and whatnot, and that's not always truth.
Yeah. Well, it's been a pleasure, and maybe we can touch base again, and hopefully it would be great to hear you speak at some of these events. I know a lot of people are going to be very interested to hear this, and I just truly want to thank you. It's been great meeting you, and I hope that folks will take some of what you've said and maybe apply it to their own self, because it's not about you or as you've stated, it's not about me or them or whoever your Ronald Reagan hero is out there. It really just does take showing up. I mean, I think that you've been able to prove that with what you did in Raleigh, and I want to thank you for it.
Well, thank you.